Imagine it was possible to successfully treat depression without needing to take any form of antidepressant drug. Today I talked to therapist Nic Saluppo about his incredible journey to heal his own depression without using any medication. Hi, I'm neuroscientist Dr. Ben Webb, and I want to help you cultivate a healthy brain for a mentally healthy and happy life. Welcome to episode 38 of Better Brain, Better You. Today, absolutely delighted to welcome Nic Saluppo to talk about talk about his new book, Demolish Depression Without Medication. So Nic's a psychotherapist, coach and workshop leader. And as Nic puts it, his own healing of what seemed hopeless with his own experience of depression is what actually motivated him to share his experiences in this book. So welcome to the podcast, Nic.
Yes, Ben, thank you. I'm delighted to be on.
Excellent. What was your motivation? How did you come about to actually writing this book in the first place?
Yes, well, as you said, it was inspired by my own journey, and in that, I realized that there isn't much of a belief or a hope in the general population that it is possible to heal and overcome depression. And so, I wrote in there what I knew from my own journey, and I wrote it with the motive of maybe spreading some knowledge and hope about, it is something you're able to overcome and heal. It isn't something you just need to manage.
Yeah. So could you just tell us a little bit about your sort of your journey? So it took you kind of 9 years, you say in the book, to go on this incredible journey of healing yourself. So how did that begin?
Well, so I was raised in an alcoholic home where there was a lot of yelling and anger and rage, and so as a child I didn't know how to deal with that, and so the way I dealt with that was by shoving it all down. I shoved down all my feelings. And then when I was an adolescent, I was choked, and I don't remember whether that was in the book, but obviously my voice goes in and out a lot, and that is a result of the being choked never healed right or all the way. It's better than it was, but it just never healed very well. And when my voice began to not work, it changed everything about my life, especially all of the social defense mechanisms I built up. I sort of developed a way of relating to the world where I didn't need to face any trouble. But when my voice began to not work, then I began to be received socially with a lot of odd looks and rejection. And that just turned my world upside down. And in that, all of these feelings I shoved down began to come out and come up. And that was when the journey all began.
Okay. So you in the book you distinguish between this what you call existentially based and emotionally based depression. I wonder if you could just unpack that distinction for us a little bit.
All right. Well, existentially based is sort of like this. I'm at a job I don't want to be at. It sucks the life out of me every day, but I'm not looking for something else, something more meaningful. And it doesn't only need to be a job. It could be many areas of life. It may be that you're unhealthy in a way, your body, and you know what you need to do, and you know you would feel better if you did it, but you're not doing it. And so existentially based is something dealing with our existence that we have the ability to address, but either A, we don't know we do, or B, we know we do, but we're not getting the energy up to do it. Now, the other one, emotionally based, is when we have emotional wounds in us that are going ignored, avoided, or unaddressed. Maybe we don't even know we're doing it. And then they manifest as feelings like anger or depression or anxiety. And then when we do address our emotions, then those feelings will dissolve because the very thing that was holding them there is now gone. And so now the depression no longer has any basis for remaining.
Yeah, and that's really the you know as you've alluded to, and you talk about in the book that your experience yourself of these emotional wounds when you were younger, and it's particularly the sort of emotionally based depression that you particularly think is sort of amenable to the method that you describe in the book and you've used for your own experience.
Yes, I wanted to distinguish that because if it is existential and you're dealing with something about your life, like a job or a faith crisis or something in those realms, that what I wrote in the book won't necessarily resolve that. But if it is related to old wounds or old traumas, that what I wrote in the book will address and resolve that.
And how do you say it very eloquently in the book, and how do so these emotional traumatic experience when you're younger, and then you say so that leads to this sort of situation where either you're suppressing feelings that want to be felt or need to be felt, or potentially those feelings are coming out in other ways, like you said, with anger or so on. So could you just unpack that a little bit for us? That relationship between that initial trauma and that wound, and then how that manifests as you get older.
Yeah, well, I think the adage of how to set, how to mind doesn't apply here. It does not. Neither does time heals all wounds. One way to think of an emotional wound is in terms of energy. Emotions are energy, and if that energy is remaining in the body, then energy always needs to go somewhere. And if it isn't going out of us, then it's remaining in us. And so we need to find a way of dissolving that energy. And so you might have a scenario where you were always yelled at, and you dealt with that by feeling uh, very afraid and hiding. And then as you're older, you date or marry somebody that also yells at you, and you feel those same feelings. And so rather than say, well, I need to set a boundary, you go into that same response of feeling afraid. And that's how we relive our emotions over and over until they're addressed.
That way, that sort of process of emotions being suppressed and needing to be felt and expressed, is that different for different types of trauma or different types of wounds or different types of emotion? Or is it generally speaking, you experience a traumatic event when you're younger, and you need to find a way of releasing the emotions associated that with when you're older?
Yeah, I would say it's fairly general, meaning in those events, whether it was anger, fear, anxiety, grief, sadness, being yelled at, whatever it was, our response was, I need to shut down my feelings. And in the shutting down is what brings about the trauma, and then later in life, manifestations of that trauma. And so it's about saying, all right, I need to go back and feel the feelings associated with that event, whatever they were, whatever I didn't feel, because at that uh, time of the event, I wasn't safe enough. I wasn't secure enough to feel those feelings as the event was going on. It is largely about going back and saying, all right, I'm going to feel that anger, or I'm going to feel that sadness, or that fear, and not just in my mind, but in my body. I'm going to allow myself to experience those feelings physiologically in my body. And that's how we break up and dissolve and release the trauma.
So it's really, 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 really interesting, because you also make the distinction in the book between the notion that perhaps you might do that, what you might talk about, you might analyze, you might think about those feelings in therapy, let's say. You're a therapist, you obviously doing that regularly with your clients, but that can only take you so far. To analyze those traumatic experiences, think about those experiences, even potentially try and feel those experiences while you're actually in therapy, could only, at least the way you describe it in the book, can only take you so far. And you actually have to go further than that to actually experience those physiologically, as you say, experience those feelings, right?
Yeah, yeah, feelings are physiological. In our society, at least in the U.S., I don't know about the UK, but we say, well, I feel like you don't like me, or I feel like I'm not enough, or I feel like I'm the loser. Those aren't feelings. Those are thoughts and beliefs. And so the feeling under all of that, if I say, I feel like you don't like me, there's probably a feeling under that of fear. I'm afraid you don't like me, or I'm ashamed of who I am, and so I'm afraid you won't like who I am. And those are the feelings under that statement of I feel like you don't like me. And so it's so vital if we do want to dissolve and release our old wounds that we identify the physiological feeling going on under all of those thoughts.
So I wanted to come on to your method and exactly how that works in a moment, but just to sort of contrast that with what some people's who might be listening or watching experiences of, what we might think of as more kind of traditional or like the medical model of treating depression, which you allude to in the book, which is most commonly, it will be treated, and certainly in the UK and I know it's the case in the US as well, with drugs of some kind, and then often put together with some form of talking therapy, and most often cognitive behavioral therapy. Of those two things go together. So I wonder if you could just contrast, those approaches to what we're going to talk about in a minute, the emotional discharge method that you actually use.
Yeah, boy, when I met my mentor, um, he said to me, well, I'll say I'd already been to two other therapists, and they both right away got me on meds. And although I was maybe some of my moods were not as intense, but inwardly I wasn't doing any better. It was just that my moods were more numbed. And when I met my therapist and then mentor, uh, he said to me, if you want to heal, you've got to get off of the meds. And he said the reason why is because you need to be able to feel your feelings and feel your emotions. And so, the thing about CBT is that it is a model of which thoughts are creating emotions. And there's certainly value and validity in that, right? If in my mind I'm saying I'm a loser, oh man, wow, I said that and they didn't, they judged me, and now they don't like me, and now I'm an enormous, loser. They'll never want to be around me. If I'm not aware of that thought process, sure, I'm going to drive myself into a bad mood, into a negative mood, but it still doesn't address the deep underlying emotions that are fueling those thoughts in the first place. It's just that those thoughts are leading to even more emotions, but it doesn't address the emotions of origin involved in those thoughts and then those subsequent feelings. And so that is the issue with CBT, and the same issue with medication is that while it does numb or ease the feelings, it doesn't address the underlying emotions that gave us a need for help or low moods in the first place. They're both more of like a bandage or a mask.
Okay, so treat very much, or in your view, sort of treating the symptoms rather than really treating the underlying cause, and in this case, the emotional wound. Yeah. So perhaps you could unpack a little bit. So your method is, as you've already alluded to, and it's been so successful for you over those 9 years, which is amazing. That it has been, and that you're feeling better and healed, as you put it yourself in the book, is very much about feeling the feelings, getting them out of your body, getting them out physiologically, properly experiencing them and feeling that. So we've sort of talked about that, but what does that look like? What does that feel like? What does that experience actually like to do? And how do you do that?
Yeah, well, there's three main ways. Generally, in an individual that is depressed, there's going to be unprocessed anger, unprocessed grief, or unprocessed trauma. Or another way to say that is unprocessed movement responses. And so, in other words, say you were, say your mom called you names as a child, and you wanted to yell and say, Mom, don't say that to me. That's mean and disrespectful. And you wanted to yell at your mom, but you didn't because you were afraid. And so there's anger there that was never addressed. And so you might address that anger. You might go out in the woods or grab a pillow and put it over your face, or go in your car and you yell those things out loud and really feel that anger that you weren't allowed to feel back then. And that would be one way of getting that anger out. Same with the grief. Generally, if we're treated badly, there's going to be sadness, but we don't grieve that. We don't cry. We say, "Oh, I'm over it. I'm going to move on." And rather than do that, letting ourselves cry, letting ourselves feel the sadness and let it out. And then the third and last way is sometimes there's moments when we needed to run away or defend ourselves, and you might lie down or stand up and do the movements in your body that you needed to do, but you didn't because you froze in that moment. So if you needed to run away, you might imagine this scenario again and run. Or if you needed to defend yourself, you might imagine it again and shove them away, or whatever that may be. And all the while you're feeling the feelings involved.
Really interesting. And just thinking about what that, for someone who might, is experiencing or has experienced what you've experienced and is suffering with and is dealing with mood issues, trying to get to the point when you're sort of, might be ready or able to be able to do some of these exercises that you're talking about. I wonder if there's a sort of journey to get to that point before you're actually even ready to start discharging the emotions in the way you're talking about, because that's quite a vulnerable thing to do. So I suppose that's my first question. The other one would be that presumably you also would want a safe place and a constrained way to be able to do that so that you're safe and people around you are safe as well, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So being ready to do the work is, I think, something every individual has got to ask themselves. Am I ready? Even to maybe just nibble on it, right? If I've never let out any of my grief and I let out even a bit of it, I'm going to feel better. And so maybe we don't need to be ready to let go into the work all the way, but are we willing to let go into the work, 1% of the way? Because it really is a letting go of I need to protect myself from feeling these feelings. It is a letting go of that and saying, all right, rather than protect myself from those feelings, I'm going to let go a little bit and feel those feelings. And it's I think what helps the most is finding a group that is doing this sort of work, because you see others doing it, and you're like, oh, they're letting their rage out, or they're laying on the ground, letting their grief out. I'm able to do it. Nobody is judging them. Nobody is laughing at them. Oh, maybe I'll be able to do it. So it's, finding a way to allow yourself to let go into feeling those feelings that you've not wanted to feel.
I mean, over those 9 years, you've transitioned from this situation of having all these suppressed, emotions and, deep wounds that you've gradually resolved by letting these emotions out. That's an incredible, amazing journey, for you to go on and in your world, in your words, healed yourself. What's that experience actually feel like?
Oh, what did it feel like? I smile when you say that, because it was like freedom in my own body. Freedom in my own body, meaning I'm not afraid of my own body. I'm not trying to avoid what is going on in my own mind and body. It was like there's this weight in me, and now it's out of me. It's gone. Is what it was like. It was just so relieving every time I did it. It was so relieving, and it was there was joy and peace under it. So imagine layers of anger and grief, and then when those layers are now gone, the natural experience in the body is now joy and peace. It was like that. Yeah, and it's so funny now to think how I was afraid of those feelings, because now I realize those feelings weren't my enemy. They were my body's way of saying, "Hey, we need to do a little work here. We need to clean this out of you." In the same way that when you need to go to the bathroom, your bladder gives your body a signal. Hey, you gotta unload your bladder. Same with feelings. Your body will give you a signal. Hey, you gotta unload this feeling. And I ignored that signal. And when I didn't ignore it, it was just such a relief getting those feelings out of me. Just such a relief. Imagine holding, you need to go to the bathroom and you hold it in all day long, and then finally you go. What a relief that is.
Yeah.
It's sort of like that. Sort of like that, but emotionally though.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. You described your experience and and the method that you use to heal yourself incredibly eloquently. If I may, I would just like to finish by asking if we have lots of people who watch and listen who are dealing with mental many different types of mental health issues, but for someone who's potentially interested in exploring this method, which obviously sounds incredibly exciting if you can and appealing if you can heal yourself without using any forms of medication, what would be your sort of advice for a sort of first step along that journey of what to do?
Yeah. Well, number one is it is so vital that you allow yourself to not judge your feelings. Generally, that is what holds everybody back is they judge their own feelings. And so whatever your feeling is, don't judge it. Anger, grief, shame, fear, don't judge those feelings. They're all right and they're normal and they're natural. Now, if you say, I'm so angry, I want to strangle somebody, well, don't strangle somebody, but the feeling itself is always all right. It doesn't mean we need to act on it, but the bodily feeling, there's never a reason to judge the actual bodily feeling. And then, other than that, it would be getting involved in some group that that would maybe promote or give you a basis in understanding this sort of work. And I know if you wanted them, I could tell you about them.
Yeah, that would be great if you if you could share them, and we have some here in the UK that I know our listeners and watchers are looking at. But if you could, that would be great. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So one of them is core energetics. That's CORE energetics. Another one is Barbara Brennan. Barbara Brennan. And then aside from that, I have a group called Soul Path. All one word, Soul Path. And if some, people can email me about that. And those are the main ones that I found.
Thanks so much, Nic. And if people want to find you out there on the internet, where's the best place to look for you?
Yeah, I would say either email me my name NICSALUPPO at gmail.com, or go to my website, my name nicsaluppo.com, or you can write my name in Amazon and find my books on there as well.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for describing your great, very interesting book, Demolish Depression Without Medication. It's been a real pleasure talking to you today, and thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. Glad we did it.